So, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to be honest. I've been doing some experimenting with algorithms, and I've noticed that every time I debunk Yeonmi Park's idiocy, I get a lot of views. So, I was listening to, and then I looked back and I realized that I had not actually finished debunking Yeonmi Park with Joe Rogan. But I also realized that it is a very daunting task because she had like a 3-hour or like a 6-hour, God knows, or maybe a 45-hour interview, but I had only gotten through like 8 minutes of it. So it's a very daunting task because she's so wrong. So today I thought I would, maybe the thing is that what I should do is slow and steady like the tortoise. So I thought I was going to debunk 1 more minute of Yeonmi Park's wrongness on Joe Rogan. This is the problem I have with Joe Rogan, is that he has a tofu brain, is what I call. When Bernie Sanders was on, he was like the best interviewer. When you have good people, he is great because his brain is like tofu in that it imbibes whatever flavor is around him. But when Yeonmi Park is there, he turns into a complete... The only time he did not turn into a tofu brain was when Dave Rubin mentioned something about building codes. That was really funny. Joe Rogan totally slammed him back. So, yeah, with that, I guess we'll start with whether or not grasshoppers are the main protein source in the DPRK. Spoiler, they're not.
When you would eat, where would you get your food from?
So the land is government, right? The house is there's no private property, and those farmers working in the collective farm, they smuggle it out and sell it in the black market secretly. So those food if we have money, we go to black market, buy corn, starch, those things. But mostly we just go to mountain to pick up plants, flowers, and like grasshoppers is the biggest protein source for North Koreans.
Grasshoppers is the biggest protein source for North Koreans. Seriously, come on. There has to be a limit on crap you make up, because I don't know what to say. Grasshoppers, she then says something later, it gets worse, but I realized that we're going to have to save our, do it, parcel it out little by little, because I take so long to debunk everything because she is so wrong. First of all, the first thing that she is wrong is about the private... Well, okay, so there is a weird... Let's look at the most... So she is just wrong because besides being bad faith, she's just outright... I don't know what she does. I think she's like the Candace Owens of North Korea, where she tells people who are regime change ghouls what they want to hear about North Korea. And so she doesn't have any consciousness. So let's look at their constitution on the economy. Property, Article number 21, Chapter 2. The property of the state belongs to all the people. So it's literally, they're saying it's not the government's property, but the people's property. There's no limit to the property which the state can own. All natural resources, railway, air transport services, post, and telecommunications establishment, as well as major factories, enterprises, and ports and banks of the country are owned solely by the state. And then the next part says, the state shall protect and develop on a preferential basis state property which plays a leading role in the economic development of the country. But then Article 23 says, private property is property owned and consumed by individual citizens. Of course, Article 22 says that two forms of increasing the role of property of all the people in leading the cooperative property as to combine the two forms of property in an organic way, and shall consolidate and develop a cooperative economic system, and the property of the people on the whole as a voluntary basis with all of their members. So she is actually 100% wrong about at least what the Constitution says about whether or not they have private property. They actually have property, and they also have a right to a co-op. Article 24, not 23. Individuals of sideline activities, including kitchen garden, as well as other legal economic activities, shall also be private property. Article 24 further says, the state shall protect private property and guarantee by law the right to inherit it. So, like I said, she is completely lying because she's like the Candace Owens. She wants to let neocons, she's like lies to say whatever the neocons want her to say. So it's 100% wrong that there is no private property in the DPRK. Let's see what else. As for the grasshoppers, no, it's not the number one protein source. That's just I don't know what to say except what? There's some sort of illegal, like small merchants called grasshopper merchants where they sell random crap, but they're in like grasshopper. Okay, but other than weird defectors, I can't find any information. No, please, what did he say? I don't know what Jordan Peterson said in a disastrous tweet. I wish I never knew who he was. Okay, let's continue.
But the government doesn't provide any food for the people?
I heard they did in the 60s, 70s, but I was born in 1993 in October.
Okay, this has a little bit of a grain of truth, but she is totally lying. As we've discussed this many, many times on the stream, North Korea can never be sovereign. All the agriculture is in the south, and the area between it is the most landmined area ever. It's just the way their geography works. I don't know enough about agriculture to understand why they can't be food sovereign, but we just know that they cannot be food sovereign, and they can never grow enough food to feed all its population. The US has known this since the 1950s. There are many reports. In fact, in 2017, there was a Wall Street Journal article talking about how we should use food as a weapon, and they said normally it's unethical to purposely starve a population for regime change. But in this case, we'll make an exception. And so in 1993, yes, the Soviet Union collapsed a little before then. Before they would give lots of grain to the DPRK and make sure that it was getting food. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, even Russia had trouble getting food. They themselves had food shortages, and so they couldn't actually send grain. And unfortunately, China was also not food sovereign back then. A lot of people don't understand this, but China's one-child policy was not because of population eugenics controls or whatever, but rather it was because China, if you look at a map of China, there's like a little ring around so there's like most of them are in the coastal area, but there's like a little ring around that area where you can grow food. Outside it, it's like a big desert, nothing grows. I mean, now things grow, but it took a lot of technology, a lot of I don't know, whatever. It took a lot of things, and so that's why China had its one-child policy, because they couldn't really trust. Like in the 1970s, the West lifted an embargo, but they were not food sovereign, so they couldn't really trust the West not to use food as a weapon. So that was actually the reason behind their one-child policy is let's make sure that we can grow all the food we can grow before we have children. And then since like they've made all these, like they've actually literally converted a desert to a forest. I kid you not. Actually, Thomas Sankara did that too. But since China's been able to grow food and increase the area in which they're able to grow food, they've eased a lot of the restrictions on the one-child policy. Exactly. No, I don't know about the DPRK and being. I'm sure that may have contributed to it, but I think on top of it, it's like mostly a mountainous region, and that's where all the hard stuff, like minerals, the gold, everything that the U.S. would want to privatize is there. No, I have not. Oh my God. Oh, you were not distracting. Don't worry. I like interacting with people. Okay. And so let's get back to this. So in 1993, Clinton, along with the UN, so back then, Russia and China, like normally, like Russia and China nowadays actually do step in to protect the DPRK. But back then Russia had Boris Yeltsin, and he was a mother bleeping bleeper. And and so they would kind of they were captured by the Clinton people, so they wouldn't really exercise their veto power, so the UN would have all sorts of sanctions. And this time in the DPRK's history, it's called the Long Arduous March. If you've read my article about Iraq that says war is good for business, you'll understand that the US wanted to privatize all the collective farms that existed and then give them Monsanto seeds that can't really have food growing. And look at what Iraq. So it was a decision made by the people of North Korea that they did not want to turn into Iraq or Afghanistan, but they wanted to be. So they understood that there will be severe food shortages until like they could get this situation figured out. So in the 90s, that time is called the Long Arduous March. And wait, did she talk about the? I'll explain further when she talks about the 90% and the 10% and all this nonsense.
And that is right after Soviet Union collapsed. So until then, Soviet Union was subsidizing North Korea's economy heavily. And China did the same, but when they collapsed, they stopped helping North Korean regime. So the regime policy was, if we, as long as keep the 10% alive who are in the capital, our rule is successful. So they were not going to do anything until 90% of the population dies.
Wow.
That is not exactly what happened. So the first thing that happened was that there was a natural disaster in 1994. I believe like a mountain collapsed maybe. I've heard some, like they had a thing where it was a really big natural disaster. And they had yeah, I was right. There was a mountain collapse, and then they had severe crop failure. And so yeah, so what happened? There was a series of, first there was flood. No, mountains did not collapse. Okay, there was a lot of flood. And then on top of the floods, the next one they had was they had the floods, and then the next one is that first they had floods, and then they had drought. But what happened is that the DPRK's energy imports, like without Soviet Union sending natural gas and oil, they had all their electric systems, irrigation systems powered by, like, mechanically powered. And so once you cut off the mechanically powered things because you sanction them and give them food, absolutely 100%. I don't think you understand how the DPRK government works. And please watch my other streams about this. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my time right now talking about this. So I've made enough streams about the DPRK that just watch that. Okay. So at that point, what happened is that they just could not grow enough food. And on top of that, there was this like really weird, and then they also sanctioned imports. And in 1996 or 7, I believe their agriculture minister was caught basically sabotaging whatever they had left. So because they could not import fuel, they had to use cows or oxen or whatever to basically till the land. The US, like the CIA, would go to the border in China and then give really hungry people, like, say, hey, here you go, have $50. And if you cut off the tail of the ox and bring it to us, you can have another $50. Well, when you cut off the tails of the oxes, what happens is that, like, we use our ears for the sense of balance, but the cows and oxes use their tails. Well, they would like flip and just fall down and they would die. And so the US literally sabotaged that. I think he may have defected. Allegedly, the West claims that he was executed, but I always get suspicious whenever people get executed because in the DPRK, because I've seen too many people animate themselves with the Juche necromancy machine. So I always get extremely suspicious. And then in 1999, I tweeted this out. South Korea pretended to send them like all these like cattle to help feed themselves. But then the cattle had some sort of weird diseases and they died by the thousands. This actually also happened in East Germany or the DDR in the 1960s, which led to late 1950s, which led to the building of the anti-fascist wall, where the West would come and they actually created this like weird disease that killed thousands of cattle. And when you cannot, in North Korea they couldn't operate their tractors because they did not have enough fuel. And because they did not have any fuel, they kind of had to go back to the old methods. And actually, without the collective farming, like if like Monsanto had to do that, we'd all starve. But somehow they were able to figure out how to do the old method of plowing with an ox and whatnot. So because of that, they were able to have some kind of ration, like some kind of food. So then they had to get so then they had to basically get make do with less money. And because the US constantly has been trying to invade for the past like 50 years, well, their policy makes so much sense. It was military first, as in let's make sure that everyone in the armed forces has enough food. And then I know that some of us might die because but at least but if you look at the cost benefit analysis, look at Iraq, Afghanistan, the DPRK, fewer people have starved in the DPRK thanks to this policy than they have in Afghanistan or Iraq. So they have not, I mean, like when you privatize it and then turn everything into a Monsanto hellhole, everything is much worse. But your news won't tell you about that. So that was basically it, in that the worst case scenario was that if 90%, like this was what people explained as the worst case scenario. Even if like 90% of us die, at least there will be 10% of us to go on and survive and keep the Juche legacy alive. So that was what they were saying, because the US sanctioned them knowing that they were not food sovereign and stopped them from having enough food. That's 100% the US's fault, nobody else's.
It's still there, same rule they have until the 90% dies out. As long as we keep the 10% alive, we are not gonna do anything, intervene the starvation.
So there's no effort whatsoever to get food to the people.
It's not like effort. They're actually actively preventing people to get resources.
Okay, this is the most twisted thing ever. So the way she reasons this is basically she says, because they won't privatize everything and let Monsanto take over in exchange for lifting the embargoes, they are actually preventing it from getting food. But the issue, of course, is that the assumption that the US aid does not come with the privatize everything, and then you have to recognize our plant patent so that Monsanto can then give you seeds and so on and so forth. So this is the most dishonest thing I've ever heard. And I don't know what more to say than this is completely dishonest. So also it's weird, I hate the way it's called. The Agency for International Development is called AID, as opposed to the Agency for International Development and Protection of Capitalism from the Free Market, which is basically what it does, is that it protects American capital through sabotage of other people's industry, production, etc., etc. And yeah, so this is so irritating. Mostly because we know that she's pandering to whatever neocons want to hear about the DPRK. And the funny thing is that, I don't know if you checked my last stream where she claimed there was no internet in the DPRK. And then, like, I went and downloaded some, I believe I downloaded a video. Like, I went to their internet and so because of the sanctions or whatever the US is doing, there's a blockade of their internet. So once you get a VPN and tunnel through like any Asian country, I showed you on a live stream where I went and downloaded some movies from, I know it was a movie or a video clip from the DPRK, from a DPRK website. So that was another complete lie. And yeah, I don't know what she gains from lying. I mean, I know what she gains. She gains millions of dollars, which she uses apparently all for cosmetic surgery. That's obviously what she does. So, yeah. And I mean, this is just one of many lies. And I don't know what to say. And this is how the news kind of confuses people, because they'll talk about all these starvations under in the DPRK, but they won't ever tell you that it's not really food sovereign, so they can't actually physically grow food. So when we sanctioned them, we were sentencing them to starvation so that Monsanto can make its profit. And yeah, so that's what really irritates me, is how Western media actually gives you an inverted picture of reality instead of a bad picture of reality. It's like 100% the opposite. It's as if like the media writes the story for the villains. Oh, okay. By the way, Alex is right. Okay. By the way, let's see. I have another half an hour, so I actually underdid this. Do you guys want me to? Do you want me to further debunk this? Like I can do another minute. But we'll have to take just like a 2-minute break for that. So let's just do that. I still need just a little bit more time. So, okay, it's rendering, so give me 1 more minute.
Need more anarchists dunked on, Nazis ripped apart, and the libs' real intentions to be trotted out? Hit the like and subscribe buttons below, and then go over to
Preventing right now, even last time the
historically.substack.com
Biden
and check
was
out our newsletter and podcasts.
Okay, so yeah, I think I was a little bit more conservative this time in estimating how much of we'll get to. So I guess we got to more than 1 minute. So weird. Okay, so let's continue.
not even last time the Biden was calling Kim Jong-un, can we give you vaccine? And Kim Jong-un said no. South Korea was calling North Korea last year. There was a big flood. Can we give you at least some medicine? And Kim Jong-un said no.
Okay, that is the opposite of the truth because that's not what was happening. Let us talk about the vaccines. The DPRK that's actually was very selfless. So what they did was that they said, okay, so they actually was able, okay, so the DPRK said that they have enough, okay, so Pyongyang Sinovac shots offered, but it should be sent to countries that were hit harder because they were able to control their vaccine. Like it was they declined 300 shots because they were able to actually control it through their quarantine and public health system, which the US makes fun of as the Soviet system, which is the Soviet system is apparently meant for controlling pandemics. So that is 100% lie. What did she say about South Korea? Let me watch this again.
There's a big flood. Can we give you at least some medicine? And Kim Jong-un said no.
Okay, so she claims that South Korea wanted to give medicine to the DPRK. Well, like I said, in 1999, South Korea, this like billionaire from South Korea was like, hey, let me give you guys 1,000 cows. And then what happened was that some of them, like they had barbed wire in them and a lot of them were infected. And they ended up putting a disease upon all of the remaining cows. And then the other cows died en masse. I have tweeted this out on Twitter. So I would not be surprised if I were the DPRK, that to refuse anything from South Korea after that happened. But let me see. but it looks like the DPRK. Okay, this is really interesting. In 1984, the DPRK actually genuinely gave South Korea aid after South Korea, the occupied part, had floods. So, so it seems like the DPRK has come to South Korea's aid, but it seems like in 2012 the DPRK accepted aid from South Korea. This is funny. Yeah. So, and then the DPRK sent medical teams to other countries, but I don't know what this lady is talking about. Okay, but they did accept the after. But this was with Moon Jae-in, which is a completely different animal than Park or whatever.
We don't want any medicine.
So because they don't want any aid from the West,
Even South
they
Korea.
want to keep people as weak as possible.
Exactly.
No, because the West never aids things. So if you've seen the Jakarta method in Indonesia, it's not an aid. It's more, let's privatize everything. And then we'll make sure that everyone starves. But then we're going to build this as freedom and democracy. So, the West does not aid. It is a privatization scheme. It is a shock doctrine. So actually, there's a really good book about this. It's called Disaster Capitalism by Anthony Lowenstein. Read it. They do not aid. They privatize. And so this is sometimes where the inherent racism is like here, because people are not usually illogical, especially people outside of the imperial core. So if they are refusing, quote unquote, what you define as aid, is it because you have you should recognize, like in Afghanistan, they forced them to recognize Monsanto patents in 2009 and change their patent clause. Same with Iraq. And when that happens, like you'll never ever be able to grow food and you are screwed. So it is really, really, really hard to come out from under the axe of the empire, under the boot, whatever, the neck. So yeah, but I don't even know what she's talking about, because it seems like they did accept aid from South Korea.
They want us. Today I was on the way here thinking, getting up in North Korea as a child was challenging because every day you get dizzy from the starvation. You get hear noise every single morning when you wake up. It takes 30 minutes to gather your thoughts to able to walk straight, because everybody's in that mode of starvation.
What? This literally sounds like crap she made up. I mean, this may have been true in the 1990s, but it's kind of like when you can't, during the siege of Leningrad, do you blame the Soviets or do you blame the Nazis for creating that situation? I blame the Nazis for sieging Leningrad. And yeah,
Yeah. So as you can see me, I'm very small. I eat a lot. I'm still 80 pounds. But when I was escaping,
I believe that has to do with some sort of cosmetic surgery procedure.
I don't even know how rich I was. And North Korean men above 4'10" feet high, they have to go to military.
Huh? I don't know what that means. North Korean men about 4'10" feet high have to go to the military. Is that more, or is that sounds like right up there with a lot of most countries, like that's like very in the range. But what did she mean inch? I don't know what she meant by 4 or 10 feet high, but whatever.
It is mandatory. Men have to serve in the military 13 years.
13 years in the military? No, they don't. That's a lie.
Mandatory, and women is 10 years.
10 years? That sounds like another lie. Okay. Or it sounds like a really big extension of the word military. They definitely have 1 million members in the military because the U.S. because of the U.S. and they have kept alive, but that sounds a little over the top. 10 years. That sounds ridiculous. Okay. So the idea is that you have to apply at age 18 or whenever you graduate from high school, and then if they decide to do it, then you get enlisted after you apply, like until the age of 23. I knew it. Okay. So it's like everyone has to apply, but then not everyone is going to qualify or be like they're not going to pick everyone to be in the military. I guess it's like they pick based on what they need or what they're qualified for. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. She meant 4 foot 10 inches. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a really outrageous range. Yeah.
And most men are very small because of malnutrition.
Yeah, for 10 feet.
4'10".
Yeah.
Wow. And so and most men are very small because of malnutrition.
Yeah, for 10 feet.
4'10".
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure she definitely, I don't know what. Yeah, I think she means 4 foot 10, not 10 feet. I don't know what. I thought, who cares? But yeah, this is pretty cringe, and I have to head out in about 15 minutes, so I can stay for like another 15 minutes if you have any questions. And any other rents. I'm gonna continue doing this at a slow rate whenever I feel like it, because she gets on my nerves.
5 miles down the...
So yeah. Do we have anything else to discuss? Not really. Let's see. Yeah. Please become. You're right. That doesn't even make logical sense. Starves the population to make them weak and then uses them to build their military. Oh, I know. Last time that literally makes absolutely no sense. That's a good point. Yeah, like, I don't know what more to say other than this is like, and what kind of like educational system allows people to be this dumb, like in America? By the way, this is so not really awesome, but this has been Russia's always stance. But it said, Taiwan is part of China, says Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. Moscow's not ruling down a temporary shutdown of all U.S.-Russian diplomatic missions, says Deputy Foreign Minister Rybakov. But that's everyone, like, that's actually, I believe that's even what you don't realize is that that's even the U.S. government stance, is that Taiwan's not a country. It's not recognized as a country. So obviously it's going to be the Russian government's stance if the U.S. doesn't even recognize Taiwan as a country. Oh, okay. U.S. spy planes deployed to Russia. Okay, so Russia caught some U.S. spy planes on the Black Sea. This is kind of and the Black Sea, as we know, is I don't know what to say other than I don't know what to say. Yeah, like it's yeah. It is okay. Check out our episode on Taiwan. So it's okay. So let's see. Where do we begin? It used to be part of occupied Japan, and then when the KMT was in 1940 to 49. The U.S. recognized it as a part of China. But then what happened is that the KMT kind of, when they fled to Taiwan. So China, so just listen to our 2-part episode on Taiwan. So it's not really, it's like imagine if all the KKK members went to Georgia, and then they had a nuclear power, and then they decided that was their country, and then they had a nuclear powered, like the Soviet Union came, or like some nuclear powered country, India, would come and say, hey, you have to protect these KKK members. Well, that's more or less what Taiwan is. And China has always maintained that it is China. Thank you. Yeah, check that out. Anyways, with that, I will have to say, Slobodu narodu smrti fascismu.